welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Callista. Pretty much all you need to know about me is I love books, I love the arts, I love being creative, and so I created this channel because I wanted to combine all of those things. I'm actually going to be turning this into kind of a combination channel, so it's going to be me reviewing books, talking about why I love them or maybe why I don't love them, all while creating makeup looks inspired by them. I decided to start with something I loved, and that is Harry Potter, as you can tell by the fact that I am proudly wearing my Gryffindor sweater, and I have like Gryffindor stuff spotted all throughout my room. I've been reading this series since I was 15, and I thought it'd be a great book review to start off with. For Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, I am going to be creating a Gryffindor based makeup look. All the products I use will be listed like on the screen because I don't want to necessarily detract from talking about the book. Hello friends, thank you for joining today. Unfortunately, my dear Muggle counterpart was so nervous about filming her very first YouTube video, she entirely forgot to give you a plot summary of the book. So, I have taken it upon myself, as a witch, to give you a super snappy summary of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. A dark wizard rose to power by the name of Voldemort. He was terrible and dark and did a number of very bad things. He was stopped one peculiar night in 1981 by the love of a mother protecting her infant child. But unfortunately, the woman and her husband were killed, leaving behind their infant child, Harry Potter. Harry was whisked away to live with relatives, and we jump ahead 10 years. Harry knows nothing of his past, knows nothing of his family. He only knows that he has a very oddly shaped lightning bolt scar on his head, and his family hates him very, very much. Harry quickly finds out, before his 11th birthday, that he is in fact a wizard, born of magic. He's whisked away to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where he quickly makes friends with another witch and wizard named Hermione and Ron. The three get into a number of interesting shenanigans as they discover magic, discover the school, go to class. Unfortunately, something deep, dark and mysterious is also happening in school. They try to uncover the mystery and end up getting into increasingly dangerous situations. Harry, Ron and Hermione are not believed by almost any of their teachers and take it upon themselves to discover what this evil is and stop it in any way they can. That is pretty much the super snappy summary of the book. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of my dear Muggle friends review. The first thing I kind of want to talk about is just how absolutely incredible the Harry Potter series is. So obviously it kind of became a worldwide phenomenon, and this is the book that started it all. So I just kind of wanted to start off by talking about what made Harry Potter so magical. And for me, I think a lot of it is just how J.K. Rowling writes. I think she has lovely descriptions that just connect with you on a very personal basis. Most likely, you have either read the book before, or you've at the very least, heard of the book. It's not, some obscure book that's just come out, so obviously there's spoilers. They are honestly incredible character writing. That is one of the things I love the most about J.K. Rowling's writing, is just how well she writes her characters. I think that is one of the main reasons why this book and the series became such a success, is because of how relatable her characters are. Even her side characters are so well-rounded, so well-written, that you can find someone to relate to in the pages of her books. And I think that that's one of the best things about the Harry Potter series. And it's at the point where, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a main character that is your favorite character. I have so many friends who Neville or Remus or Dumbledore, McGonagall, those are their favorite all-time characters, and I think that that's a really unique thing about J.K. Rowling as a writer. And that starts right off the bat in book 1. You are introduced to a broad range of characters and they just grasp you from the start. For me, my favorite characters, I tend to list Neville, Hermione, and Remus, who doesn't show up in the book, so I'm obviously not going to talk a lot about why I love him, but those tend to be my 3 favorites. I connect with Neville in this book so much, in all the books really, because like I said, I'm a Gryffindor, but I am the Neville-iest Gryffindor you will ever meet. I relate so much to his clumsiness, to his anxiety, to the fact that he is honestly just trying his best, but he struggles so much. He's a little bit of a mess, but I appreciate that he is a mess that is worthy of being in Gryffindor, and I think that that was an important message. I guess just going with the start of the book, I think literarily it's got a really interesting start, because for the majority of the series we see the book from Harry's point of view, and right off the bat we don't get that. We get the book from the Dursleys' point of view, which is honestly a really interesting literary choice. I'm not sure if that is necessarily a common choice. It feels like a prologue, and in a lot of ways it is, even though it's called chapter 1, it is a prologue because it's, you know, telling you the events that came before. But I think a lot of authors would have been tempted to start off with maybe Voldemort entering the house, and you know, you have Lily defending Harry, and that would have been the temptation to start off with something action-packed to draw you in, instead of starting with the aftermath of all the action. I think that that is an interesting choice because that kind of sets up the divide between the wizarding world and the muggle world. To be able to see the Dursleys doing their normal thing where they don't like magic, they don't acknowledge magic, and you see something weird is going on from the get-go. You know there's something odd happening. Also, it maintains the connection strictly to Harry's family, even when Harry himself can't really be a reliable narrator. He obviously can't speak. He's a baby, like his thoughts would just be like, something bad happened. I don't know what. But yeah, so it switches to a more distant narrator point of view partway through that first chapter, which gives you Dumbledore and McGonagall, and so that also is an interesting choice because it switches POV in the middle to have this, like, to be going from hearing the Dursleys' thoughts on all this weird stuff happening, and then to just switch. Like I said, interesting, but it follows a very tight narrative. So it's obviously following, well, there's something odd going on, what's happening, you know that there's something weird, there's owls going around in midday, there's people in these weird outfits, there's a cat that's just been sitting in my driveway all day, it hasn't moved, don't know what's happening. Even within the first chapter, I think J.K. Rowling does a really good job about drawing the reader in by not giving away the whole Potter situation away. She builds that suspense just a little bit and then solves the mystery in bits and pieces along with the different characters. The other thing that I want to talk about that I think is really well done is J.K. Rowling's writing style. So it's very bedtime story-like. It's almost fairy tale-like in its descriptions and the way it draws you in. And it's very curious and light, and it draws attention to the character and setting descriptions, whether they're relevant or not. The note that I wrote was, this is Dumbledore's Planet Watch versus the Put-Outer. So obviously the Planet Watch doesn't really come into play that much. It's not really a super relevant thing, but the Put-Outer, you know, once you get much later in the series, becomes weirdly relevant, you know, but because it's a very kind of bedtime story like fairy tale writing style, your attention is drawn to all of these lovely little details. So from the very beginning of the book you have time jumps. So also you're getting Harry as an almost 11-year-old rather than Harry is a baby, and you're suddenly finding out leaving him with the Dursleys was rough idea. To say the least. Now, I am one of those people, you know, I've heard some arguments that are like, well, I mean, yeah, the Dursleys are crap people, but it wasn't technically abuse, whatever. No, they just straight up abused him. It was a very, very abusive relationship, straight up neglect, and I was tempted to go look up, like, child abuse laws in the 90s in the UK to see whether or not they had, like, mandated reporter laws in the UK at that time. I didn't end up doing it because I filmed this video, because I've been putting off filming for like 2 weeks because I've just been so nervous. But yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. This is me like, so I really wanted to kind of look that up to see, like, where did Harry just have really crap teachers to not notice the fact that Dudley was super well taken care of and super, like, fat and happy? How did they not notice that Harry was, like, super malnourished? To anyone who looked, it would be fairly obvious that Harry, at the very least, is neglected by his family. But, yeah, so I don't know how literally no teacher throughout all of his childhood noticed that, but whatever. As I stated, I think that one of J.K. Rowling's primary strengths is in her ability to create really engaging characters and that are well developed. And so even with Harry from the start, you know, we're of course going to get to know him the best because we're seeing this from his point of view. But even when you're in the first couple chapters, you know, you get, for instance, the snake incident at the zoo, which sets up both Harry's compassionate nature and the parcel tongue. And then, you know, it's really interesting to me just how the whole plot progresses, because you don't get a lot of stalling. It just jumps straight into the narrative. You know, it explains a little bit, of course, how Harry is abused, how terrible his life with the Dursleys is, and how he has literally no idea about his past. Then you jump straight in chapter 3 with the letters, and I love the note that Harry is so not a Ravenclaw, because instead of grabbing one of the many letters that went onto the floor, he was like trying to grab them from the air, which, yeah, like, and that wasn't even just in the movies, it was in the book. Like, he tried to grab them from the air, and it's like, come on, child, what are you doing? What are you doing? Such a Gryffindor. But that scene is also just funny to me. And a serious note, like, Mr. Dursley's paranoia sets in so fast. On a slightly more, just on a funny note, basically, I think it's really funny. Just that whole scene, the no post on Sundays, the absolute extreme lengths that Mr. Dursley went to get away from all of that, I just think is really funny. One thing I wanted to point out, just a little detail. So, like, I wrote this, it's in chapter 3, so he mentions, like, he got the birthday presents of a coat hanger and an old sock. And I just thought that was so sad. It reminded me of, like, in a will, when you, like, specifically mention someone and give them, like, an almost paltry amount of, like, inheritance. It shows that you are acknowledging them, but you're, like, snubbing them. It's kind of that same viewpoint where they're acknowledging his presence, but wanting to let him know that he's worth, like, nothing to them. And I think that's even sadder. Just from a kid's standpoint, it's almost incredible to me how well Harry turned out given the crap he put up with in his childhood. Like, I would think, like, pretty much any kid would need some serious trauma counseling after all of that. And Harry's just, like, he's just trying his best. He's a good boy. I'm like, yeah, I do love the comeuppance and Harry's first cake, and everything about Hagrid makes my heart so happy. He's such a good, strong character, and such a good fatherly figure for Harry. I love Hagrid so much. And I could honestly spend an hour just talking about how much I love all of these, like, individual characters. they're just so well done. I already stated why Neville is one of my favorites, just because I relate to him so much, and a lot of my childhood I honestly spent like Neville. Like if there was like a mix of Hermione and Neville, that would probably be me as a character person, because you know I connect with Hermione obviously because she's very bookish, she's very smart, she doesn't quite she's the epitome of a lawful good character. Basically, she likes to follow the rules. She likes to do things right the first time. Equates getting expelled with worse than death. I relate. Plot-wise, I think that the book as itself stands up as an individual story. So that even if, you know, the book hadn't been quite as much of a success as it ended up being, you would still get a lovely story. You still kind of get this well-rounded narrative of a boy who had no home, who lost his family, finding his place, finding a place where he feels like he belongs, and you still get a sense of that well-rounded narrative that I think is really well done. But then of course it leaves the door open for more stories to come, and obviously J.K. Rowling got the chance to write that story, and I will be forever grateful that she did. I'm honestly just going through my notes, and I took probably like 3 pages of notes as I was rereading the story, and I'm having so much trouble deciding what I want to share with you, because I could talk about this book, this series, for so long. Obviously there's so many things that are set up for the rest of the series in here. So you have everything from Harry's deepest desire for family, you have the wand with the twin core, you know, just all of this stuff that is just so important in this book. Ooh, that was so glittery. So glitter. Am I Gryffindor yet? Do I look dramatic enough? I just want to tell you all to go read Harry Potter, and if you've already read it, go reread it. For me, it's such a cozy story. Like, it's one of those books that has been a safe place for me. If I'm having a bad day, I might just go reread a Harry Potter book, and suddenly everything will seem okay, because it's almost like the quote, you know, I can't remember the actual quote, it's the one that everyone like overquotes about, like, you know, the darkness and the light that Dumbledore says, like, it's like way out of hand. I think it's in this book. Did I write it down? Why are half of my notes just talking about how much I love characters? Like, I'm like, poor Neville has a terrible childhood, I just want to give the poor boy a hug, and then poor Harry is a bundle of doom, gloom, and anxiety. Like, I just want to give all the characters hugs, basically. I just want to hug all of the characters. All of them. All of them. Except Voldemort. I don't want to hug Voldemort. He can go fall in a pit. That's what Voldemort can go do. I am a person that tends to focus more on plot, or no, I'm not. I'm a person that tends to focus more on character than plot. So for me, the development of the characters and the consistency of the characters is a lot more important than the actual plot. Like, obviously the plot matters. Like, if there's no point to the plot, or there's very little plot, it can kind of throw me off. But as long as you have characters that I connect with, that I believe are realistic, well-rounded, interesting, honestly, I'm probably still going to enjoy the book. And I'm really not a picky person. Like, I will like pretty much anything and everything. We get a really good intro to kind of how the school works in the book. It took me so many years to realize that, like, the house system was based off, like, the way, like, British schools run. I didn't know that, because obviously, if you can't tell by my accent, I'm American. I was also homeschooled, so I barely have an idea how the American public school system works. Like, I don't know, man. So I was just like, oh, that's really interesting. And then someone was like, oh, it's based on the UK house system. And I'm like, what? But there's so much debate about the actual intention behind the houses. Like, if it's based more on your value system, if it's based on your actual character traits. I've heard people ask questions about, like, could you theoretically switch houses, like if your personality just like completely changed between ages 11 and 18? And I'm like, y'all, I don't know. Maybe the Sorting Hat can see into the future. Because he sees potential, and I think that's what the Sorting Hat is sort of focusing on. He's focusing on your potential and what values will help you grow as a person the most. That's kind of where I think it falls, but you know, there's obviously room for interpretation and debate. I wrote LOL so many times in my notes. Like, there's just, like, it's written in such a lighthearted fashion. I love the early books. The early books are my favorite, and part of it is because they balance the humor and the lightheartedness and the whimsical magic so well against the later books where it's all dark and gloomy. And I mean, you know, the kids grow up as the books go on, so you know, I mean, it fits thematically. I feel like this is not quite dramatic enough. Like, I'm not sure how to make it more dramatic. Maybe I just need to build up the red more. Like, I feel like if I'm gonna be like repping Gryffindor, I need to like up the drama. Like, there needs to be so much drama in this. Like, why am I in such a dramatic house? It is my life. One of the things I love the most about this book is the value that J.K. Rowling places on, you know, little things making a big difference. And so, obviously, you know, we have the attempt at the return of Voldemort. And, you know, we get all of this, you know, worriness, and, you know, Harry is obviously trying his best. He's trying to be the hero, trying to be the, you know, he's trying to make sure that Voldemort can't come back. They have some mishaps and setbacks, like they lose, like, what was it, like 150 points in one go. It gets rough. But it comes down to Neville, and he gets the last bit. Like, it takes, you know, it takes so much courage to stand up in general, but it takes even more to stand up to your friends, and I love that that's the last message you're kind of left with. I mean, yes, it's cool, you know, what Harry and Ron and Hermione did to kind of redeem themselves, and obviously did to, like, take down Voldemort, but, like, it comes down to Neville being willing to stand up to his friends and trying so hard to do the right thing, even when he is terrified out of his mind. And I just love that boy so much. Yeah, it also does a really interesting job of kind of like subverting your expectations, because I feel like the first time I read it, I was like fully expecting Snape to be evil. And, like, obviously when I was prepping for this video, I was coming at it from a position of already having read it. So obviously I knew that it ends up being Quirrell that has Voldemort's head on like the back of his stupid like what's it called? Turban. Yeah, like, just being utterly, like, thing. I mean, you're seeing it from Harry's point of view, so obviously we have a biased narrator, which comes into play quite a bit in the books, and I think that's part of the reason why Slytherins of the book are done so dirty and throughout the whole series, really, is because we have a biased narrator viewpoint from Harry. And that comes into play with Snape as well. You know, you are only privy to what Harry is privy to throughout the vast majority of the book, and so when you see something that appears as if Snape is guilty, it's because Harry happened to walk in at just the wrong time and, you know, heard just the wrong thing. And so everything points to Snape being evil, and it's just this massive red herring. Obviously he's still a crappy human being, but he's not the big bad evil. And, you know, you that go into the end and Harry gets to the end of the tunnel and oh my gosh, it's Quirrell. Like, I'm trying to remember back to when I first read the book if that was actually like a giant plot twist for me. I don't honestly remember because it's been so long since I like first read the books, but like I feel like it was. I feel like she built it up really well, like, you know, having Harry convinced that it had to be a fluke, that he helped protect the stone, that he, like, everything from, you know, being convinced that Snape was the one that tried to sabotage him in the match, that, you know, all of this was all Snape's fault, and then it ends up not being Snape. I feel like that was all just built really well, and then you have this great reveal at the end, and it's all, you know, it's all wrapped up nice in a little bow, but just leaving enough to like, okay, well, is Voldemort actually gone? Is he back? What's happening? Like, but at the same time, wraps up in such a way that you feel cozy, you feel at home. It's just, I think it's done so well. Even the side plots, like with the dragon, I mean, I guess it's not a side plot because that's how they end up getting detention, and they need the detention to find the unicorn. So it's not really side plot, but I mean, at least in the beginning, the dragon, I had to pause and look it up. His name is Norbert. Should have known that. Definitely should have known that. Oh. I'm so rubbish at showing you guys what I'm using. I will get used to this. I feel like that's honestly the selling point of this book, is just to fall in love with the characters, to fall in love with how well they're written, to connect with them, to understand what they're going through. I feel like that's what makes this series so great. I mean, there's probably nothing else to say, but like literally almost none of my notes are plot based because I love the plot. I think it's really well done, but I think it's really well done in the fact that it like showcases the characters and their personality. Like, I love that each of the characters gets their moment to shine. So obviously I already talked about how much Neville gets his moment to shine. He's the one that like tips it back over so that Gryffindor is able to win. Ooh, I don't know that that blush matches. I thought it would. I have to be so careful with the Juvia's Place blushes because they're so pigmented and I'm so fair that it just I think the theme is obviously about finding your place, finding a family, and being willing to stand up for each other. And I think that that's really important. And you see your golden trio, Hermione, Harry, and Ron, becoming the closest of friends, and you see them just thrive throughout the book. But I mean, there's just that sense of friendship, of togetherness, of its importance. And I think one of the things that sums it up the most is when they're down in the tunnel and Hermione is speaking, like right after Ron has one of his shining moments of Gryffindoriousness. That was terrible, but has one of his shining moments. But Hermione comes up to Harry and she says, books and cleverness, they're more important things, friendship and bravery, and oh, Harry, be careful. I feel like I need a thicker wing for Gryffindor. Like, I guess while I'm working on my liner, I can talk about kind of why I chose the look I did. I wanted it to be very focused on, you know, the qualities of Gryffindor that were, oh no. Oh, I told you I can't talk and do this at the same time. Oh my gosh. Ooh, I don't know how I'm gonna fix that. Well, it matches-ish, so that's about as good as we're going to get. Oh, that was one thing I wanted to do. Okay, I'm so sorry guys. I wanted to point out the fact that like they do a absolutely marvelous job. I'm just trying to find my highlighter. That's not a highlighter. Fix this real quick. But I wanted to point out the fact that J.K. Rowling does like a super good job of contrasting good and bad examples of characters. So like there's a good example of a stern but loving teacher and an example of a teacher who's just a crappy human being. So there's Snape versus McGonagall. McGonagall is stern, she's a rule follower, but she really truly cares for her students. She wants them to succeed. She wants them to be the best they can be. And I think that that is, you know, that's the kind of teacher you want. You know, I mean, of course you want some like really chill, relaxed teachers as well, but teachers like McGonagall are the ones that are honestly really rare because they have this perfect balance of being kind and caring and understanding and being stern and wanting you to learn from your mistakes. I think one of the shining examples in the book is the incident with Neville's Remember Ball, and you know, of course, the ensuing incident with Harry being convinced he's about to get expelled because they get caught by Professor McGonagall, and he's like, I'm about to get expelled, and then he ends up on the he ends up on the Quidditch team. And I think that that's a stunning example of McGonagall being understanding of a situation and like doing her best to make sure a student is well taken care of. Snape, even when he is trying to be helpful, like at the Quidditch match, he's obviously just like, he's like, oh my gosh, he's just so mean. He doesn't really care if his students learn. He just kind of wants to bully them and mess around, and if they're not automatically perfect, he's terrible to them. Like Neville, he is absolutely horrendous too. It doesn't matter what he does, he is just horrendous to Neville. And it's so sad because you're not even giving these students a chance to learn, a chance to shine. It's just be perfect or be gone. There's, I think, a lot of teachers that are unfortunately like that, and that's really, really sad that that's the case, but it's true. There's a lot of teachers out there that are like that, and there's not nearly enough that are like McGonagall, that ride that balancing line between caring and stern. And obviously they set Dumbledore up as kind of, I don't know, he's kind of an absentee father figure, honestly. You know, I think Hagrid is actually a better father figure throughout, if we're talking about throughout the course of the books. Just because he is constantly there, constantly caring, you know, and even in this book, you know, he sends him little gifts, even if they're like, they're not perfect, but they're well-intentioned. You know, you get the, what is it, rock cakes that are like practically inedible, but like, they know that Hagrid cares about them, and that's what's important. And obviously, you know, you get the Weasleys kind of getting in there with sending all of the gifts on Christmas, and yeah. Okay, sorry. It is pretty much impossible to talk and apply lipstick at the same time. Jackie Anna maybe can do it, but I cannot. Alright, just to sum up, you know, even if you're a little on the fence about whether Harry Potter is a book that you're interested in reading, I would still encourage you to give it a try, because at this point it's kind of a modern classic. It's just one of those things that is well worth a read, even if you decide not to continue after you read Sorcerer's Stone. I think it's built up very well. It's got a great plot. At the very least, if you have a preteen or a teenager, I think it's a great read. I think it teaches a lot of really good values. If you're a little more wary of books that contain magic, this book does have some aspects of dark magic that come around. You know, they mention, obviously, Voldemort is a dark wizard. He does some pretty bad stuff. I mean, this is a fantasy world. And I think that that's something, you know, you need to be aware of if that's something that you are concerned about, or if you're, you know, a parent that is not sure about giving this to your children to read. I would just encourage that, like, read it yourself, maybe have an open dialogue. For me, obviously, I love the book series. I have a slightly biased opinion, but I think that the values that it teaches of friendship, of love, and of finding family are good enough that even if you're a little wary of the subject matter, I think it's still a very good book to read. Probably if you're watching this review, you've already read it and loved the book and just wanted to see what I had to say about it. When I was creating the book, oh my gosh, when I was reading the book to create the review, I realized that, because I was reading multiple books at the same time, and I realized that I was having a much easier time formatting my thoughts and opinions on a book I hadn't read before, because with Harry Potter there was just so much I loved and so much I wanted to talk about and so much I thought would be good to mention that I just had a significant struggle in coming up with a coherent sort of narrative on my review and what I thought. And so if this review didn't make a lot of sense, I apologize. Basically, I'm just trying to say that the book is well worth the read, whether you are an adult, whether you are a child. I think it is charming, it is well written. It's one of those books that I will continue to return to year after year, just because I want something nice and cozy to read. I am forever thankful to J.K. Rowling for writing it, for not giving up despite the fact that she was, you know, rejected by 12 different publishers before she ever got Sorcerer Stone published. I can't imagine what magic we would have missed out on if she had just given up after those first few publishers. Again, thank you so much for coming to my very first YouTube video. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and I hope that you have a beautiful day, that you come back to see whatever I decide to do next. Bye!